Hello, everyone. Welcome back to How's That, the cricket podcast with me, Josh, and Lily.
Hello.
It's very exciting for us this episode because we have got our first guest. Lily, tell us who it is.
So exciting. So we are joined with Maisy Gibson, who is a current Hobart Hurricanes and Tasmanian Tigers cricketer.
Really handy leg spinner as well.
Yeah.
Very good.
So if you listen to our clue, we hope you guessed it.
Yes, hopefully. It was a bit of a tough one.
Yeah. Look, so we chatted to her about all things cricket, injury, socks.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a lot to say, and she's,
So
very
just
funny.
A fantastic person to talk to.
Yeah, so generous with her time as well. So without further ado, we hope you enjoy our very first interview with Maisy Gibson.
Oh, that's brilliantly done by Gibson. She deserves that. She has locked them down. And a delighted little shimmy as she knocks over Wyatt.
Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on. You're actually our first person we're talking to. So it's really exciting.
Oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
First one.
Yeah, we thought we'd just kick it straight off with asking you where you are at the moment and what you've been up to with the kind of pause of the WNCL.
Yep. I'm currently in Hobart, Tasmania, training as per usual, so kind of 5 days a week at the moment with club cricket on the weekend. And yes, the postponement of WNCL, obviously not ideal. A bit of uncertain times, not just for us as athletes, but I guess for everyone, with the opening of borders and things like that, especially from an international point of view. But it's looking promising, especially that they were kind of able to host the Ashes, both the men and the women. So I think they've got things put in place already that will hopefully help us get through. And then also with Cricket Australia, also keeping the Big Bash going this year throughout some tough times, especially for the men. So kind of everything's a little bit up in the air. Nothing's kind of set in stone yet, but yeah, a bit more of a delay. But our head coach, Sally Ann Beams, has kind of put on some practice matches for us. And we've been quite lucky in Tasmania where we haven't kind of really been hit by COVID like other states, and I guess the rest of the world have been hit as well. So we've been quite lucky and fortunate down here.
Yeah, that's good to hear that it's, I guess you're kind of still keeping within the game while you're not being able to play at that kind of domestic level. So we'll just go, I guess, right back to the beginning. Can you talk us through how you first started playing cricket and, your cricket story?
Yeah, well, I basically, I guess a lot of kids growing up, I played in the backyard with my older brother. And rather than going and watching every Saturday when he played, Mum said I could join if I wanted to. So just gave it a red hot crack, really, and kind of from there progressed through. I'm originally from New South Wales, so progressed through kind of the underage programs that they've got there, and then made my way into the Sydney Thunder squad and the New South Wales Breakers squad, and was there for, I think, 4 years. Not really in the consistent playing 11, but had some great experiences there and great opportunities. But I guess for me to push my career further, I kind of needed to play a bit more of a consistent role in playing kind of as many matches as I can throughout the WNCL and WBBL season, which kind of, there was a leg spinning opportunity opening up down in Tassie, I think 3 years ago now. So kind of jumped all in, I guess, packed up everything and moved down to Tassie, and kind of haven't looked back since. So currently playing or contracted to the Tasmanian Tigers and the Hurricanes.
When you were younger, did you play any other sports, or was it mainly just cricket?
I'm not very good at any other sports other than cricket. But I did, I played all sports through school. So I played basketball at a primary school level. I guess the only sport that I really did play, I'm not sure if you can hear my dogs barking.
I think just
a little bit. It's all right. It's all right.
I apologize. Actually, they're not even my dogs, they're my housemate's dogs. But played AFL, I guess, consistently kind of outside of school. Again, got into it through my older brother. So that's kind of how that kicked off as well. But again, I wasn't very good. It was kind of like I was probably better at cricket. and kind of made like the rep teams and things like that. So I kind of, when I was about 15, kind of, I couldn't play AFL anymore because you couldn't play in a mixed competition. It had to be girls played against girls and boys played against boys. So that wasn't around or available to me where I lived in New South Wales. So ended up just playing cricket, but still continued with, like, I think I played softball in high school. That wasn't a good time. Volleyball, like, you know, I just kind of dabbled in everything and was still not very good at everything. But yeah, so cricket is my sport.
Yeah.
Is it still kind of like around at the moment, girls v boys? Does that happen, or is it still girls v girls or boys v boys still? Is it still like that today?
I think there's more, like, I'm from kind of rural New South Wales, not way out rural, but kind of 2.5 hours from Sydney. So there's a lot more available now to the girls. Like, we've got a couple of good local girls competitions back home, which is kind of like 40 minutes from home, which is, I guess, a lot more manageable for families, especially with other kids. Like, I've got 3 other siblings. So, like, my dad drove a lot of kilometres over the weekends before we could get our licenses. So I think it's just the availability of, like, the time, I guess, in the car versus the standard you're playing, which I think it has improved a lot, because I used to have to travel from Singleton to Sydney to play club cricket on a Sunday, and then played men's grade cricket and junior cricket on a Saturday. So played 3 games in a weekend just to get, like, some cricket in, where now from an earlier age, like, you look at the Master Blasters, there's a girls only. But then again, there's still the mix. It just depends, I guess. Because I would say, like, if you've got 2 young kids and one's a boy, one's a girl, having kind of the mixed option available is actually very handy for a parent, I can imagine, especially trying to organise and getting to school, getting home, getting to Master Blaster and things like that. But the kind of the girls only is becoming more and more available.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely more opportunities with cricket with the girls only, and that's fantastic, because I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and now that she has the pathways that went round when you were young and I was young and Lily was younger, and it just, it's gone a lot better. So she can kind of go, oh yeah, I can do that. I don't have to go with the boys, but it is good. And and she can, like you said, it's a great opportunity. It's still handy.
Yeah.
So you said before about bowling leg spin. How young were you when you started bowling leg spin?
I guess when I first started playing, I kind of bowled and, like, my wrist naturally kind of fell off the ball, I guess. And my dad, being an off spinner, was kind of like, well, why don't we just try this? So I literally, pretty much since I played under 10s, I was just bowling loopy. Like, if there was a net, it's definitely going on top of the net. It's not coming back down, just loopy, slow leg spin, just because of how it naturally kind of came out of my hands. And then obviously when my cricket progressed, the seriousness of me bowling leg spin also progressed.
You've been out for the past 2 seasons with injury. How's the injury going these days, and everything all good on that front?
I don't think I'll ever progress from the rehab group, but from a gym point of view. But so I tore my ACL in September 2020, I think. So everything's all a blur. But I've missed 2 consecutive Big Bash seasons. And then made my comeback, I guess, in our recent WNCL fixtures against Queensland in late December. So a bit of a disrupted or prolonged kind of rehab, but it's going good. I'm back playing consistently.
That's good.
It's just kind of managing kind of a few little things, I guess, that you're probably always going to have to keep managing. Like, if you were to tear your hamstring, you're always going to have to do, like, those strengthening exercises. Make sure you really warm up properly. It's kind of everything you do after a game as well is kind of just a lot more important after you do such, I guess, a serious injury. So I'd like to say I'm flying, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it all runs smoothly from here on in. So no more sore knees.
Fingers crossed. People don't usually, like, if you don't do a severe injury like that, people don't understand what you have to go through, like the rehab and the niggles that you probably will get later on. But hopefully it goes all good.
Yeah, I think like the flow and effect of if something's not kind of right, like if you think of it as in like you spend every day running basically, and then all of a sudden you can't run, and then it's like, well, you can't just hit the ground running with that. You actually have to build back up, and it's quite common, I guess, to kind of do a few soft tissue injuries along the way once you start ramping up your training, because you're not conditioned or weathered to this sort of thing. So like from a fitness point of view, like I feel great, but getting through a game of cricket is still 3 times as hard as I found it kind of 2 years ago, just because of the lack of game time I've had available to me in the last 2 years, and then like the prolonged kind of in between matches of WNCL. I'm still kind of finding my feet. So I guess for me, it's nearly been a blessing, because it's like maybe I was a little bit underdone when I came back from a game time point of view, because it was kind of a little bit touch and go. But kind of now I've played kind of a few club cricket games back under my belt, a few practice matches. So it's been, I guess, a blessing if we're trying to find the small positives. But so far so good.
No, it's good.
Was it like difficult during those 2 seasons that you weren't able to play, to just kind of, you're still, you know, in the Hurricanes squad, I guess. So was it difficult to not be able to get out there and play as much as you probably wanted to? And were there certain things that you did to try and really keep in the game of cricket while you were out of these 2 seasons?
I guess for like the year when I did it, the Big Bash was held in a hub in Sydney. So I was so far removed from the team that for me, it was actually quite good, because it wasn't people coming in and out. It was just kind of me. I had my rehab. I had everything I needed to tick off, and I could get in and get it done without kind of having that feeling of like when people, or like when the team comes back from a trip away and then goes again, like, I guess it was like the solitude that I found really beneficial. And then I guess throughout my whole of rehab, I was counting down to the 12-month mark, because it's normally like a 9 to 12 months rehab. With a few disruptions for me personally, it meant it was kind of prolonged 6 weeks, and I missed the whole of Big Bash. And I think that was the most frustrating bit for me, because I felt like I'd done everything I could to be back and ready, but it just, things hadn't, I guess things hadn't clicked. So it kind of sent, I guess, my physio and S&C back to the drawing board about how we can basically intensify the next 6 weeks so I could hopefully be back for WNCL. But I had multiple meetings and discussions like with my head coach, and I was lucky enough to stay on through the whole of Big Bash, because I guess for me, like something that I needed was my support network. So a couple of my best friends are in this Hurricanes team. Throughout COVID, it's probably too risky to fly back to Singleton and see my parents and spend weeks there. So it was like, my people are here. I would like to stay if that's possible, which I was lucky enough to. We had a few kind of like what my role would be. So a few kind of, I guess, discussions around that. And I was basically a hype girl, like trying to lift the team morale. Like it was a very long time away from home for the girls, especially the girls that we had come down from Melbourne that have come out of lockdown, and all those, like the ifs and buts of what could have gone wrong, I guess, from a COVID point of view. It was just really nice to be around the team, and kind of, I guess, my big thing is like 12 months ago, I was nowhere near playing cricket. And now every time I get to walk out, it's like, this is a great time. Yeah. So it's kind of like what was and what is now is just very different. And I'm very grateful that I guess I got through that, all that rehab. And now I'm on the other side. So it was like, I guess throughout Big Bash, I was so close. It was just like, we just need to keep going. We need to keep ticking along. And then I got to be around some of my best mates as well.
What was it like to be within that hotel bubble in that first locked down Big Bash season? Because I guess it was new for all the players, and it was new for all the people watching as well. How did it kind of affect people mentally to be kind of within that same space in that hotel? Because it was so weird to see.
Yeah, when I talked to the girls about it, I don't know, a lot of them found it very challenging. But then you talk to someone like an Emily Smith, who was our keeper, or she was there as a replacement player. So she enjoyed it because all of her best mates from all the other states were in one spot, which never happens for her. But I think mentally, you just couldn't get away from cricket. So you go down for breakfast, and you'd see someone that you played yesterday, or you'd see someone that you were playing tomorrow, and I guess there was just no chance of getting away from that, and having your own personal space other than in your room. I guess that it's kind of like having that freedom nearly taken away from you. And I think it was really hard for quite a few of the girls. And I think that's maybe nearly why we've been so reluctant to go back into such a full-time hard bubble. I think it's more so just managing the restrictions from state to state. And it is different for every state you go to as to what the COVID restrictions are. But if it means that if you follow those restrictions, you're 50% less likely to get COVID, I think you'd take that. But I guess the biggest concern from us, from a cricket point of view, it's like if one person goes down, we probably don't have the same pool of players that are probably state ready to be called upon like the men do. So the men had quite a few kind of really good club cricketers that could easily hold their own throughout the Big Bash, where potentially in the women's game we don't have that just yet. So it's just trying to manage, and that would be very hard to manage, but trying to manage that. So we've kind of got our best 15 or so contracted players, and then I guess outside of that, it's kind of like who you can find, and if they're probably up to the standard that we need, I guess.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point.
I think was it because I know in Adelaide after the first WBBL season, as it was in that bubble, I'm pretty sure this year it was a bit more relaxed because it was we didn't have Omicron here before, just like in that women's season. So I did see, we're walking down to Karen Rolton and we saw like the Thunder girls in the cafe. So was it a bit of relief going into this WBBL season? Were you thinking it was going to be similar to the one that you'd had before? And I guess, was it, less challenging this time round, or was it still quite hard to handle?
I think it was less challenging, I would assume, but like we still had some restrictions about like where we could and couldn't go and things like that. And I guess for us throughout our Big Bash, we played in low risk areas. So we started in Tasmania, and like the girls from New South Wales that came down in Victoria, that came and played for Big Bash teams, they all had to do 2 weeks quarantine. But then it was kind of like the whole purpose of that was after that, because our borders were shut, you could live, there was basically COVID has barely existed in Tasmania. So at that stage, because it was before the borders opened, there was no restrictions. So we had like a big chunk down in Tasmania, but you had to wear masks like as in to and from the game because there were still COVID restrictions there.
Yeah.
And there was a few restrictions as in how many girls you could go out with, and ideally eat outdoors unless you can book a whole function room for your team and things like that. But it was kind of like you'd walk down the street and forget COVID existed, which I think for a lot of the girls, especially from kind of those states where they've been in long lockdowns, was such a relief. And then half of us went to Adelaide, half of us went to Perth.
Yeah.
And the COVID kind of issues there were very low risk. And then we personally finished in Mackay, so kind of rural Queensland, when again, like the restrictions, as in there were no state restrictions, but we were still under like a certain protocol. But I guess you could kind of walk out and just forget that COVID was a thing for a while until it was time to kind of kit up, and just kind of follow those precautions more so like around game time when we're all kind of together in one spot, which I guess is a little bit more high risk. So like if you're just walking down the street with one of your teammates, it was all good, but it was like no more than 6 could go out for dinner together and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you did have like a no more. Did you guys have like groups together? Like you would pair up with people, or was it just like no more than 6?
No, that's what the men had to do, but I think because they were hit hard by COVID, so we were just no more than 6, and then it was like eat outside and things like that. So it wasn't necessarily like from the state government, it was more so from a CA point of view, and it's kind of like, and you basically think of it as like, I know we're under some restrictions, but it's like if we follow this, we'll get a full season in. If we don't follow this, we're jeopardizing basically our women's season. So it was kind of like a catch-22, like you'd probably take those few restrictions that we did have then going back into a full-on lockdown, I guess. And I'm not sure what the men's Big Bash was like, but I'm assuming from what I've heard, like they could only hang out with 2 people, and I guess their restrictions were tougher because like COVID kind of came into the camps.
Yeah.
But it was different how it affected the men's to the women's. It was just, it's weird.
It really hit the men's, didn't it? It was like everyone was out from one team at some point. It was crazy. But you moved to the Hurricanes for WBBO 05. You made the move with Nicola Carey, I think, as well. Naomi Sallenberg's there as well, and Rachel Priest, who have all been at the Thunder. So what was it like to move with these girls who you've played cricket with for so long? Did it make it, I guess, easier, the transition from Thunder to Hurricanes, to have people with you?
Yeah, it's funny that people think that we kind of all moved down together and we all kind of spoke about it, but I basically had signed my contract before Nick had even decided what she was going to do. But it does make things a lot easier that you've got nearly like a comfort blanket, I'd say, to come down with you, because like when you walk into your first day of preseason, it's like your first day of school. There's all those same nerves, but to see a familiar face there, that helps a lot. And then it was quite good because we ended up living together for the first 2 years that we were down here. And so just to have her more so also as a support network, and someone that also away from cricket, I would consider one of my really good friends, that I had her down here as well, because it can get quite lonely, especially kind of through these COVID times where it's not just as easy getting on an hour flight back to Sydney to go see my family. It's kind of like weighing up all those risks that could happen, or at one point it was kind of like a bit touch and go. It's like, do you go home? The borders could shut. Then what happens? It's just kind of all a bit of a nightmare, which I can imagine so many other families are experiencing the same thing, especially if parents' kids, or imagine if my parents were over in England or something like that and had gotten stuck for a lot longer than planned. It's just like the whole COVID thing and the whole uncertainty around everything, I think, really hits home. And I think kind of that's where it's also been quite good, because we've got quite a few girls that are from interstate that, because here in Tassie, like my friends outside of cricket, it's like, oh, it's fine, like whatever, like COVID's not really a thing. But it's also like, we probably don't really understand living down here. Like I don't understand how hard it has hit my parents, I guess, to an extent. So it's been quite good to lean on each other, especially when we can't necessarily get home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be tough, because considering you need a passport to get to Tasmania as well. But yeah, when you moved from Sydney yourself from Hobart, how did that affect you? Like, was it a big sacrifice?
I would say, I don't know, I think I took it for granted how easy it was to see my parents and my family, because they were just 2 hours down the road or up the road. Where now it's I haven't seen them since it's nearly been over a year, I think. And I think it's like the whole thing is like, it's fine if I hadn't seen them for a year, but I chose to do it. It's kind of like it's not convenient nearly. Like I don't have access to just fly home and see them. And so like some days are tougher than others, but then it's also like FaceTime is an amazing thing.
It is,
basically as if you're there. So I think the hardest time is like when you're around, I guess, like your family's birthdays or Christmas time or things like that, and you can't get home. And it's like, that's when I'm always there. Like I'd always fly home in April for Easter. It's my brother's birthday, my dad's birthday, kind of things like that, where it's like, that's probably not kind of feasible right now, but it's I've got a good support network down here that
that's good.
I would nearly consider family. So I think that's been really important for me, also not just having all my support network in cricket, but also trying to find some support networks kind of outside of cricket or away from Cricket Tasmania. So like they still might play club cricket, but they've got a completely different life from a Monday to Saturday, but on a Sunday they're a Clarence player. But from Monday to Saturday, they could be a teacher or they could be like anything else. So it's not like I'm surrounded by full-time cricketers. So we're getting there to broaden my horizons, I guess, from that point of view. But it's been a good challenge.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to hear. Who has been your favourite teammate that you have played with alongside your career? Or, who's been your favourite teammate that you've kind of gelled with?
Okay, when you say gelled, I would say like a Belinda Vaccarera, but then you said like who I've forced to be my friend, like a Rachel Haynes, or like a Sasha Maloney from Tassie.
Yeah.
But I would say because Belinda also moved down the year I moved down, and she would say that we were acquaintances when we first came down to Tassie, but now she's like one of my best mates, and I think she's someone that like can always have a laugh and brings out probably the more fun side of me, but can also be really good to talk to about anything serious, anything cricket related. So she would be someone that I've gelled with the most, but then like my forced friendships have been like a Rach Haynes or a Sasha Maloney. So it's been I've got a bit of both.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
So those, I guess, are all Australian. So international wise, you've played your fair share of WBBL. So who would be your favourite international teammate that you've had?
My favourite international teammate. I would
asking hard questions, huh?
Yeah, I would say either Heather Knight. So, oh my goodness, I've got like three. Heather Knight, who I played with, went down in for the Hurricanes, and then there was a season at Sydney Thunder where Fran Wilson came over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes,
that might have been more. That might have been like a forced friendship too. Maybe with all the internationals, it's a bit forced friendship. But then she ended up being a replacement player down at the Hurricanes as well.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like just a cute little coincidence. And then Mignon Dupree, who we had this season for the Hurricanes, is just like, I don't know, just everything about her. She's so wise. I feel like I could just ask her anything and she's going to give me an answer and I'm going to believe it, even if she has no idea what the answer is.
Yeah.
Like she can tell me the wrong math answer if I asked her a math question and I believe her. But she's been a really good asset. I guess in just like their different views on cricket and how you can play it, and like tactically, like Minnie's been a really good challenge to bowl to in the nets. And so basically for this Big Bash, I was a net bowler. So every time before a game, I'd bowl at Minnie and we just have a really good challenge. And it kind of didn't, like with Mignon, it doesn't matter what day she's having, you get the same person every single time. So that's especially like around cricket, like it's a very emotional sport. You can feel very lonely in the team environment, but like she's consistently great.
Yeah. Yeah, she seems awesome.
And having like played alongside Heather Knight, that would have been so cool to just kind of pick her brain and just see what, that would have been awesome just to be around it.
Yeah, like especially that she bowls spin, like just it's kind of like she wasn't captain the year she was down here, but like the natural leadership skills that she showed, just from like a tactical point of view or like just game awareness, was amazing to kind of witness and be a part of.
So while we're on the topic of the WBBL, you've been in it since the very beginning, and you were in the first season that won. In comparison to WBBL 07, how much do you think it's progressed, and is the standalone WBBL season, has that made it better for the women's game, do you think?
I would say we've earned our right to be standalone. I'd say we bring in enough crowds to kind of warrant to be a standalone competition. And I also just think we play a lot less cricket than the men. Like, so they've got 4-day games, they've got 1 days, and then they've got the Big Bash on top of their whole international cricket schedule. So I think it's like, it suits us a lot better because we go a couple of rounds of WNCL, then we smash out some Big Bash, and then we've got 6 WNCL rounds plus the final after. And I just think it makes our season just a little bit more consistent. And even with like the games we play, the consistency is key basically, because like you're then playing consistent cricket. There's not like this big lull in between matches. Like the men start and then they just don't stop. But it's been amazing to see the progression of the game, but then also like the progression of the skills of girls that I grew up watching and then also playing against in New South Wales or in underage cricket and things like that. Like that's been like the most exciting thing. And then now we're starting to see like a few younger girls come in and kind of how well they've progressed or how quickly they've progressed. So obviously the grassroots kind of strategies that are in place are obviously coming off, because we're seeing it's nearly getting like the girls that are debuting are getting younger and younger, but can easily hold their own. And I think that's really exciting to see. Like, we've got some very good young players coming through, which is very exciting kind of for the future of Australian cricket as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the grand final this year, in the WBBL just proves how much I think the game's progressed. Now I feel like it'd be rude not to talk about the socks. How did this start? Where did this come from? Just tell us all about it.
So when I was at New South Wales, I did a Certificate 3 and diploma in small business through the Elite Athlete Business School, which is run by Rebecca and Jason Nightingale, who used to play rugby league for the Dragons. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but so kind of started through that. And then for the diploma, our final assessment, I guess, was to put together a business plan. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't really know. And the people that were in my group were a few rugby league boys. So like they had kind of dabbled in construction, or they were writing to their coffees or things like that. So they kind of based it off what they were going to do kind of post rugby league.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to base this off, or what I'm going to do. And then once I started thinking about it, I was like, I've always been fascinated or obsessed, whatever you'd call it, with socks. And especially like going to school, I would say like I'm a very individual, authentic kind of person. I've got kind of like my own style, and especially like when you've got to wear a uniform. Yep. And it's like your top and skirt, or like your training uniform, but there's never any socks to go with the uniform. So it's like I could express myself.
No, there's not.
Through the socks.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it started. And it was actually something that I could feasibly do while I am still playing cricket. It's not too expensive to kind of start up. And then basically the whole theory behind it is eventually I want them to be like fun and colourful and things like that. But I need to kind of build like a brand and have some consistent customers and kind of work through that. So then it's kind of like everything on the socks is things that I enjoy, or things that I love. So basically there's a duck, because I have a pet duck named Arnold. There's a sausage dog.
So awesome.
I love sausage dogs. There's a cactus, because I like plants, but it's kind of like the only plants I can keep alive are succulents, so therefore we go with the cactus. The originals were obviously off my head. I've got
my oh, there we are.
Yeah. I've actually got mixed match. I can't get my leg up that high, but I've got a sausage dog one and a duck one, because I've lost a pair, so then I've just paired them together, and it's a little bit of mix and match. And yes, now there's beers, because who doesn't love a little scooey?
Ooh, that's cool.
And yeah, and then I've also teamed up with the Cricket Library, which is a podcast run by Matt Ellis, who's from W New South Wales. We've teamed up, and we've got like the Cricket Library socks. So that's been pretty cool too, like to kind of branch out in that sense, which hasn't been too bad. And then it's more so just like, I guess for now, like I go through phases where it's like there's a big lull throughout my cricket season, like now, and it's kind of like I feel like I can really put in a lot of time and effort. But then like when it comes to Big Bash, it's like all guns blazing, it's all cricket sort of thing. So it's kind of something that I feel like eventually, when I can put in 100% of my time and effort, or have a better balance of cricket and business own amazing, I feel like it could be something good. But like until now, it's just a really nice hobby. It's something completely away from cricket. It's something like I can just sit down in the lounge room, and if I need to wrap all these socks, I can do that. And it's, I guess, quite mindful and peaceful.
Yeah.
So it's also just something away from cricket, which I think is really important. Especially like last season, coming back from my knee, it was kind of like I can do everything right, and I can still walk out there and re-tear it. So it's kind of like the realization, I guess, hit me a lot harder, because I'd previously done 2 ACLs when I was like 16, but like my cricket career hadn't started. And then now my cricket career is kind of in the midst of it all. It can just easily be taken away, and it could literally, for me, take just one more serious injury, and like that could be it. So it's kind of like all the what ifs as well. So it was really nice to get away from cricket and not think about kind of all the bad what ifs, and just
Yeah.
do that and then come back and kind of be like, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. I don't have any Maisy socks yet, but I do have ones. These are really cool that I found. I found them in an op shop, and I'm just like, oh yes, thank you very much. So these are good socks.
You know what? I've had mine. This is probably my 5th year now, so I'm definitely due for another pair. So I have to get onto that. But I'll see if I can sneak these ones to school, like you said, because my school is very strict with socks. You can only wear white socks, but I don't think you can have logos.
Put them down.
Yeah, I'll see if I can, and I'll just like roll them up every now and then. But,
also, credit to the sock enthusiasts because they've lasted you 5 years. Let's talk about that for a minute. That's durability right there.
That is pretty good.
A review that you can put out there.
Yes.
They're still perfectly good quality, and 5 years. Look at that.
Right.
Now, how did they make it to the 100? Because I saw an Instagram post of yours in the 100 of like many people wearing all your different kinds of socks. How did that get over there? Because that's worldwide.
So I played with Chloe Tryon at the Hurricanes as well. So she was in that photo, and then Sally Ann Beams was the Trent Rockets head coach, and she took over our analysis as well, who is Timmy Teckers. So he was also wearing them, but then also Holly Armitage, who plays for the Northern Superchargers, came out to Tasmania and played down here. So that's how they've also kind of ended up over there. And then I played for Nottingham in 2017 maybe, and Georgie Boyce, who plays for Manchester Originals, I was friends with her. She's also friends with Holly, so it's kind of like just through connections, like people who know people that are happy to give them a little plug, which has been really good. So it's kind of cool to sit back and have these people in different franchises at like these amazing English grounds getting photos. So that's kind
awesome. You can see when they're like running into bowl or batting and they're like their trousers roll up. You're just like watching it on TV. You're like, that's mine.
That's pretty good.
Just send a little message. Can you cut your pants a little bit shorter so we can see the logos?
No, that's great. It's very, very creative and clever, and like I said, big fan, love them.
And so everyone needs socks, so it's great.
You can't go without socks.
Everyone needs them.
Exactly.
There's no shortage of market there.
No, exactly.
No, definitely not. Very clever business decision.
Yeah. Now, have you had in your career, a favorite wicket that you've ever taken? Have you got one which just stays in your mind? And if you're going to bowl a specific ball, you want to bowl it like that wicket?
Not other than getting my mates out, I think. Like, that's always a little... I can't remember. Okay, this sounds really bad. I can't remember exactly. But I would say in like the WBBL final, I think like I don't necessarily have like memorable wickets, but I've got like when you play in big finals and like you get to contribute. So it's kind of like I remember that like I got to contribute with the ball that day, especially like if you bat like in the lower order. So like I think my big thing is like walking away feeling like you've made a good contribution to the team, even if it's necessarily like taking a catch. Like I think I walk away from that and it's kind of like that was a really good day. Like I can kind of remember the days and how good it was, but not necessarily like what actually happened.
Yeah. Do you remember your bowling stats from that first WBBL final? I've got them here. Do you remember what you took?
Did I take 3?
Just step up my game.
Not
3 or 2?
You took 2.
I had 1 caught at point. I remember that. I took 2. I took
Yeah.
Lisa Staleka. Did I?
I think I just got the stats.
Actually,
I'm getting
back. I've got this thing since I've moved to Tassie, and the coaches are convinced that I cannot take a caught and bowled. So there is the semi-final. This wicket will stay with me forever. There's a semi-final against Perth Scorchers in WBBL 01. We were playing at the Adelaide Oval. I fielded at short 45 in the Big Bash, so I'm kind of hidden sometimes. And I remember running Elise Villani out with a horrendous throw, but then I've come on to bowl.
Oh, no.
And I bowled this half tracker, and Susie Bates has whacked it. I'm not even sure how it's come back at me because it should have gone to deep square leg. Has whacked it back at me, and I've literally closed my eyes, and I caught it here. And I was more so getting out the way because it was going to hit me in the face, and I caught it.
Okay.
And that wicket, I've sent around to the staff at Cricket Tas to let them know that I can do it. We might need to practice it a little bit more.
We'll have to try and find that footage and bring.
I've probably got it saved on my phone.
Just in the camera, in the likes.
You were right, Maisie, that you got Lisa Stalaker.
Oh, you found that.
Lisa Healy
in the wicket, and Healy, yes, LBW.
Look at that. So it was
that would have
one.
That would have been a good wicket to get.
That's a good day for a leggy.
Yeah. Did you ever bowl like Healy or Perry out when you were bowling for the Breakers? Did you ever like bowl them in the nets or anything like that?
I wouldn't say like you. I would say that my fielders would have caught them, but it's also like you didn't set a field, so you can't say that happened. But no, sometimes I'd be happy to get through the nets unscathed. Really, just it wasn't that bad, was it?
Now
this or that.
We've got some quick fire this or that questions for you. We've only got a couple, so
no
we
correct
might need
or wrong
an
answer.
explanation. We might, depends on what you go.
We might, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go.
away.
All right. OJ or apple juice?
Orange juice.
Yes.
Orange juice.
Good choice.
Pie or sausage roll? Tough one.
Sausage roll.
Sausage roll with sauce.
Barbecue sauce. That is controversial. I know that.
No, I know. I support that. Barbecue sauce. Love
It's not controversial. I love this.
it. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Coffee. T20 or test matches?
I think I would like to play a game of test match cricket, but I also don't think I could physically get through 4 days of cricket. So I'm going to have to say T20.
All right, we'll go T20. That's a fair answer. I respect that.
Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs. So as soon as you've got two dogs. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Yes.
Coke. Good answer. Summer or winter?
Well, summer, because it's cricket season.
Yes.
Goodness, it'd be silly if I said winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some people are just like, I don't know how you could prefer anyone. Yeah, summer you got cricket and you can go down to the beach.
But I mean, you can layer up in winter. You can't layer down in
That's
summer.
my big thing. Yeah, you can always get warmer. You can't get cooler unless obviously you go on the water or whatever. But yes, that is also my mentality.
Yeah, just
cool.
putting
All right,
winter.
that's all the questions. That's cool.
Now
you passed.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I can back a lot of them. Now
This is our debate.
Our final question. Now, this debate has actually rocked. Well, actually, I'm exaggerating. It's made it to England. So you know, Kate Cross and Alex Hartley. They've got their own podcast, and she mentioned it on that podcast. So I'm feeling really accomplished right now. So this is a big debate. So, do you classify porridge as cereal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What else is it classified as? You didn't give me another option.
It's kind of your own interpretation. I would classify it as a breakfast option because
it's a cereal.
It's not cereal. It's okay. This is my reasoning. It's not cereal because cereal is with like cold milk. So Cocoa Pops, Frosties. I don't know.
I don't even think I put milk in my porridge.
Oh.
So what do you can
don't quote me on that because I can't remember the last time I had a bowl of porridge. So
water a thing in porridge, maybe?
You can get water in porridge,
yeah. Weird. But anyway, that's our thing that has been I think it's quite a controversial thing because it's like you're either this or that. And I'm on the side of no, it's not cereal.
Well, if you can come back to me with what bracket you'd put it in, because then what do you qualify muesli as?
Aha. So that's what Alex
basically
said.
Yogurt is the same as milk. It's just hard.
Yeah, I guess I think
that is true.
Here. But I think muesli is cereal because you put cold milk in it, but porridge, like, is toast is you eat toast at breakfast, but is that a cereal? No. So porridge is like, I think
toast is a breakfast.
I'd put toast and porridge in the same bracket.
What, miscellaneous?
Yeah.
Miscellaneous breakfast foods.
Not cereal breakfast food. Yeah, probably.
No, thank you, Maisy. I classify it as a breakfast cereal because you put milk on it, and people put warm milk on wheat bix as well. I did it when I was younger.
Okay, where do you find it in Coles or Woolies? Where do you find porridge? Is it in the cereal section? Because that's going to answer all your questions.
I noticed this when I went to the shops the other day. It's in the same aisle as the cereal, but there's the cereal section where you've got all your boxes of cereal, and then you've got
it is separated.
You've got oats, and it's got like the little tags on the top. So maybe oats is its own breakfast category with muesli. I don't know.
It is classified as a superfood as well.
Yeah. Well, we will find out more people's opinions and see.
It's an interesting topic. It is. When you first asked me it, Lily, I'm just like, you know what? That is a good one. I never thought about it now.
It's a big debate, but
like, it's split the Harvey household to it.
It split my household completely because we were talking about it at the cricket, and we didn't speak to each other for the rest of the night because we just couldn't agree on whether it was cereal or not. In the car home from the strikers, we're all just sitting like this, like, it's just not a cereal, but whatever. But yeah, it's disappointing that you didn't agree with me. But,
I'm not disappointed. I'm one up.
1 point to Josh. But but thank you so much for talking to us. We really appreciate your time. It's been great to hear your point of view on, the past couple of WBBL seasons and your cricket story. So thank you for chatting to us.
Thank you very much for coming on as well.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, that's brilliantly done by Gibson. She deserves that. She has locked them down. And a delighted little shimmy as she knocks over White.
How much fun was that interview with Maisy?
That was a lot of fun. Really awesome interview to do. And I am one up on you, Lily. She agrees that porridge is cereal.
I'm not okay with it. I have been talking to many other people about whether they classify porridge as cereal, and I've been taking her idea.
Well. Yes.
I've been calling it the miscellaneous breakfast category, so I've kind of taken her little idea.
Well, I have since we talked about that with Maisy, I have done a little Google digging, and according to Google and everything that I read, it is classified as a hot breakfast cereal.
I read a soup. Someone said it was a soup. On the internet, I looked it up and it said soup.
I would not classify it. You can't find porridge in the soup aisle.
No, but it is the consistency of soup, I think.
I can see what they mean, but oh my gosh, no.
But yeah, look, all the things that, she mentioned about overcoming her injuries and...
Yeah, that was really good to hear.
Living bubble life, which was really, really insightful. And she gave us that kind of, that opinion that you'd never really hear if you didn't ask those questions. So as from a viewer's point of view, it was interesting to hear that side of, what she's been doing to kind of get herself back out onto the playing field. So that was also really interesting to hear.
And hopefully if people are listening and they're struggling with injury, hopefully that gives you a little bit of motivation to really, like, no matter what injury you have, you can get back. And it's a road. ACL, one of the worst injuries you can do. I'm scared. I do it every time I go into the field. It's probably one of my biggest fears, doing an ACL, because I don't do well. sitting on the sidelines for a long time. So yeah, no, hopefully that gives you motivation. And thank you again, Maisie, for your time and giving us that interview. That was very awesome.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best chats I've ever had. It was like I said, super insightful, and she was very funny and generous with her time. So yeah, thank you for that, Maisy. But yeah, other than that, that is it from us this week. So you can get in contact with us via email at howsatthecricketpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram or Twitter at howsatTCP. That is it from me this week. So thank you for listening.
We will be back next week to talk about the wrap-up of the Washes.
We sure will.
See you guys.
How's that? You messed about.